Welcome to the 354th Fighter Wing Live Coronavirus Virtual Town Hall. Today is March 30th, and this is our fourth update to the wing. I'm Kay Nissen, and today we have with us Colonel Benjamin Bishop, the 354th Fighter Wing Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Matthew Ramage, Chief of Aerospace Medicine, and later today, Chief Master Sergeant Stephen Hansen, the acting 354th Fighter Wing Command Chief. We'll be taking questions in the comments section, so please let us know what is on your minds, and we'll try to get to as many as we can for the next hour as we'll be live. So, sir, we're going to start with our normal update. It's been a week since we've been talking here. There's been a lot of things that have changed. So can you just really quickly give us the highlights of what's changed from last week to this week?
Absolutely. So as we all know, the coronavirus, pandemic across the world, across our nation, is a rapidly changing situation. And that's no exception here at Eielson Air Force Base for the base and the community as a whole. So I just want to hit some highlights, what has changed in the last 7 days. The big one, I think everyone's aware that we have one confirmed COVID case in the 354th Fighter Wing. I'm happy to report that that individual is safely in isolation and is getting the outstanding care that they need to help them through that situation. I just ask that you all keep them in your thoughts and prayers and for a speedy recovery. The other big change is Health Protection Condition, or HPCon Charlie, defined as a substantial risk to the community. We implemented those procedures and then obviously changed our base kind of facilities and services accordingly. So a lot of those services have drawn back. I think most of you are aware of those changes. If you're not, I encourage you to go to our webpage, our Eielson webpage. There's a COVID link, and you can get information on those services, what is open and what is closed. Also, if you have the 354th FSS app, you can use that as a source of information regarding those services. Other changes is we are reducing our footprint, our manning posture here at Eielson Air Force Base, and actually implemented a mission essential reporting policy last week as well. What that does is allows us to really get after our priorities, which first and foremost are protect airmen and families, also safeguard our mission, and then support our community as a whole. So by reducing our manning posture, it allows everyone to use additional social distancing even at work, and allows us to still get after those priorities. So it's a way to balance that portfolio, if you will. So I'm sure there might be questions still out there as to what is mission essential, and if those questions are out there, I encourage you to engage your chain of command because we have squadron commanders that are helping adjudicate those decisions and get the word out. Also, again, it continues to be a rapidly evolving situation. Some of you may have seen the recent health mandates that our Alaska governor put out on Friday. Also, we have additional command directives that I published last night, and they are also published on our publicly accessible website. These command directives really talk about additional measures that we're taking here on the installation. First and foremost, our Baker Field House, or our gym, is closed until further notice. Also, we have restricted access in terms of visitor passes. So there's going to be no visitor passes approved moving forward without a squadron commander exception to policy. If you have a current visitor pass, that is still valid until its expiration date, but expect that will not be renewed unless you have a squadron commander exception to policy. Also, I have suspended trusted traveler, so everyone coming through the gate is going to have an ID and have a reason for being on the installation. So those are the big things. Obviously, I'm sure there's lots of questions with all of those changes, so I encourage you to first go to your supervisor, go to your chain of command to stay plugged into the information that's flowing down through official command channels. And then we have other measures for you to get that information, like I alluded to, our website. And then obviously we have town halls like this one, so please feel free to ask your questions as we go through the hour here.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I see some questions flowing in. I know probably the hottest one is talking about the gym, sir. So can you just kind of step us through how that decision was made, a little bit of the background? I know you put a video out over the weekend, but I think for anyone else, just kind of help us understand why that, because we understood it being a place where it was active duty only before we closed it. So why the change now?
Yeah, let me just clarify there. It was military only that are assigned to Eielson Air Force Base. So we have a lot of our guard partners, mission partners here that have an important part in accomplishing the mission here in Eielson. So the idea was we wanted to minimize the risk of exposure while maintaining the ability to support the mission. And frankly, I connect the dots from our Baker Field House to our readiness state. I mean, that's a direct line because we have to maintain physical fitness in order to be able to get after the mission and maintain our resiliency from a personal perspective, but also as a force. I will say one of the reasons that I changed that gym policy is that it came to my attention that we had an employee that was working at the field house that came into our clinic with COVID symptoms. So they were reported to our medical facility, and they were placed in isolation in order to get some testing results. At that point, the risk of potential exposure did not outweigh the readiness benefit. So I just made the immediate call so we can make sure that member is treated, gets the proper attention they need, but also as a way to kind of minimize the risk to our force.
Okay. I think we're working through some technical difficulties right now, so I see questions rolling in. We're going to take a break here and get ready to answer those questions. And so thanks, sir, for all those updates. I'm sure we'll be going into a few more specifics as we take this break. So keep sending us questions, and we'll see you after the break.
You know that the best way to prevent the spread of coronavirus is to wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands!
But why? It's because soap, regular soap, fancy honeysuckle soap, artisan peppermint soap, just any soap, absolutely annihilates viruses like the coronavirus. Here's how. This is what a virus, like coronavirus, looks like. It's a bit of material surrounded by a coating of proteins and fat. Viruses easily stick to places like your hands, but when you rinse your hands with just water, it rushes right over the virus. That's because that layer of fat makes the virus behave kind of like a drop of oil. You can see it happening in this demonstration. Oils are just liquid fats. What happens when you pour oil into water? It floats. It doesn't mix. But add soap, and suddenly that fatty oil dissolves into the water. That's because inside, soap has two-sided molecules. One end of the molecule is attracted to water, the other end to fat. So when the soap molecules come in contact with water and fat, these dual attractions literally pull the fat apart, surrounding the oil particles and dispersing them through the water. Let's go back to our coronavirus molecule with that layer of fat holding everything together. When it interacts with soap, bam, that fat gets pulled out by the soap. Soap literally pulls apart and demolishes these viruses. And then the water rinses the harmless leftover shards of virus down the drain. But, and you know where I'm going with this, it takes time for this effect to happen. 20 seconds to be specific. To show why, we ordered this lotion that mimics viruses and their fatty layers. It glows under a UV light. If you just rinse your hands under regular water, nothing comes off. If you wash with soap for just 5 seconds or 10 seconds, your hands are still covered. The virus is still there, able to get you and others sick. But 20 full seconds, now the soap is actually destroying the virus. Hand sanitizer works too because it's mostly alcohol, and alcohol works in a somewhat similar way to soap, breaking down that fatty layer. You need a high concentration of alcohol to make that work. The CDC recommends hand sanitizers with at least 60% alcohol. But even with 60% alcohol, the CDC recommends using soap if you can. If your hands are sweaty or dirty when you use the sanitizer, that can dilute it and diminish its effectiveness. As for soap, just any old soap works. You don't need soap marketed as antibacterial even. The FDA says skip it. There's no proof it's any more effective. Just be sure to wash your hands for 20 seconds. That's happy birthday twice.
Happy birthday, dear. I guess me.
Or the chorus to Lizzo's Truth Hurts.
Straight to my face.
Or Prince.
Raspberry beret.
Or Eminem.
Go, go, only got
Or even Dolly.
Jolene, Jolene, Jolene.
Just as long as it's 20 seconds. And you're using the ultimate virus annihilator, soap.
Welcome back to the town hall. We are tracking that there are some technical difficulties. We're understanding that there might be a bandwidth issue with everyone being online right now. We're going to press. We're recording this segment anyways, so we will find a way to get this information back to you. So we'll keep pressing so that we can answer questions live. But thanks for everyone for your patience and for tuning in. So right now we are going to do the Q&A rapid fire. I can do a quick repeat of what was changed from the segment previous. Basically, guys, we've had a case since last week. We're now in HPCon Charlie. We're doing mission essential reporting. We have command directives posted on our website, www.eielson.af.mil/coronavirus. And the biggest thing to take from that is we've closed the gym. We're not doing any new visitor passes with exception. And we've suspended trusted travelers. So that's just basically what you missed in the last segment. But I've seen some questions pop up that I want to get to. So number one, Samantha Pierce is asking, now that there was a confirmed case on base, will you be closing down the CDC?
At this time, I am not closing down the CDC. Based on the specifics of the case, I did not see a threat to our CDC, and we have precautions in place in order to minimize the risk of spreading coronavirus to our CDC, and that is a mission essential task that we do have. I just want to say, you may have heard me say this previously, but the one confirmed case that we did have, I'm happy to report the individual had some travel history, but as they came back, they followed the command directive guidance and immediately went into quarantine. So in that specific case, the exposure risk of further spreading coronavirus was extremely low. So that just underscores the importance of these command directives that we are issuing. It's important for everyone to follow them, not just the command directives, but also the recommendations from the CDC and also the Alaska State health mandates.
Excellent. Yes, sir. So can we get into the mission essential CDC mandate? So what does that mean for people who normally rely on childcare? Who's actually able to access childcare now? Yes.
So as we alluded to earlier, mission essential personnel are decided by squadron commanders, and those people that have that mission essential designation will be provided access at the CDC. If you do not have that designation, then you should be staying home and not sending your children to the Child Development Center.
Got it. Okay, sir. We'll go to a question that we actually had on our page earlier this week, and it was about PPE. So the question was, why isn't there PPE being issued to mission essential personnel?
That's a great question. Thanks for having me in here today. So the big deal with PPE, the personal protective equipment, it is necessary to have the proper PPE for the task that you're doing. And so PPE can look different depending on what you're doing. So for those like myself who are seeing patients in the COVID clinic, my PPE looks very different than a first responder, be a fireman, EMS, or defender who is going to a scene. Everybody else, the masks would be unnecessary as long as personnel are following the social distance guidelines and having proper cleaning of their stations. So for mission essential people to have PPE, if they're not in the first responder or medical roles, there's no further personal protective equipment needed aside from their normal duties, as long as they are adhering to social distancing, washing, and making sure that people stay home if they're having any symptoms at all. Kind of an alarming trend that I've seen this past week in the COVID clinic. More than a handful of people have come to the clinic luckily have tested negative, but said that they were at work for several days before coming in. Stay home, folks. That's the only way that we can mitigate the spread of COVID and any of the other upper respiratory illnesses that are seasonal at this time of year anyway.
So when we're talking about PPE, are we talking about masks, or is that not a thing that people should be wearing, or how does that actually work?
A great question. So I think that you're alluding to the surgical masks that are very common around. And so feel free to wear your surgical mask or your Hello Kitty mask or whatever it looks like, but I don't want people to have this false assumption that by wearing a loose-fitting mask, they're specifically protecting themselves. Really what that's doing is a twofold. Number one, it's keeping their secretions, if they were to cough, contained so that they're not going to spread to others. And number two, it's a very visible and effective reminder for folks not to put the hands in their own mouth or touch their face. But a loose-fitting mask that is not a properly fit N95 respirator will not filter out these viral particles. And so I don't want people to have this false sense of security. The mask is to cover your cough and keep you from touching your face.
Got it. Okay, so I really don't need to wear a mask if I'm doing all of the other things, right?
Absolutely.
It's really just preference.
Keep that distance.
Okay. Got it. So next question that we had coming in was from Melinda Myers, and she was asking, I think this one will be for you, Colonel Bishop, where can visitors find exception to policy for access?
So the best way to get an exception policy for a visitor pass is through the active duty members' chain of command, or our guard partners through their chain of command as well. So we'll get the template out to squadron commanders. I'm actually going to talk to them right after this. We're going to discuss that process.
What would be a good reason why someone would need an exception to policy?
I would think if you have somebody that you need to help manage your childcare needs, for example, at home might be a good reason. I would say those measures for extreme hardship, emergency, personal emergency type of situations. But all those are great discussions to have with the supervisor and the squadron commander. Again, the intent here is to properly protect our airmen and their families by minimizing exposure, outside the fence line, and then also that safeguards our mission and also supports our community as a whole by making sure we minimize the threat of further spread of coronavirus.
Okay. All right, sir. I think one more question here. This has been a hot one. I know we touched on it before with the gym being closed and why we closed it. When will we open it back up, or will we open it back up? Is this something that's a permanent closure, or how is this actually working? I saw a few people ask that question.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit, but the gym is kind of a balance between risk of further spread of coronavirus and risk to our people and our mission over long term, especially if the gym remains closed for an extended period. It starts to eat into our personal resiliency and also our mission resiliency. And I will say that is a discussion that we as leadership are having on a daily basis in terms of balancing that risk. I will say if I have the opportunity to reopen the gym in order to minimize the exposure of coronavirus, then I'll look to those opportunities. I will say that's an ongoing discussion right now. So the answer is, honestly, I don't know if and when the gym will reopen. I do know eventually it will, and when that happens, we will fully communicate that decision to the community and to our airmen through official command channels and also through venues like this one, in order to give you the confidence that you can go to that facility and have a safe environment and already get a good workout. Until then, I encourage you, we have workouts of the day published on our Facebook page. Mm-hmm. I encourage you to, take those opportunities to get a workout in your personal space. If you're not in quarantine or isolation, I encourage you to get outside, maintain social distancing in order to get a workout. We are in limited movement across the base, but that's one of the things that we have specifically allowed is for people to get outside, especially when the sun's out like it was today.
Got it. So we're actually getting a few questions coming in right now, so we'll keep rapid firing. Next question was, would we consider closing the commissary if we had a similar situation, like where someone was working there and tested positive?
I will say I don't want to get into all the specifics of the mission elements, but I will take whatever means necessary in order to safeguard our airmen and families and also continue the mission. I will say to the commissary, that is one of my specific interest items because that is a mission essential function that we do have. We need to feed our populace. And I just talked to the store director this morning. Actually, we were on the phone to talk about some of the measures they've taken to reduce risk to the commissary staff. And then also the patrons. So I encourage you, everyone listening, when you go to the commissary, please practice good social distancing. Please wipe in and wipe out your cart, if you will, and please use good, personal hygiene in that environment. I will say one of the questions I have is when are we going to get more toilet paper? And I talked to our store director, and I'm happy to report that they have placed orders in. It's a 2-week process, so it's taken a couple weeks for that increase order to come in. There is a large order coming in today and tomorrow from across the different products that they have. Chill products, for example, are coming in. And paper products are coming in as well. So I just ask everyone be patient with our commissary staff, and then I ask that you be mindful of not just your own personal needs, but the needs of our community when you're purchasing those products.
Got it. I think we'll do the one last question that I saw, and that's going to be about public health emergency. So this one actually came into our page earlier this week. So when would we be in a public health emergency? I know I saw other installations declare it. I'm not quite sure what that means. So could you explain a little bit of what that means and when we would make that decision, or if we would make that decision here?
Yes, that's a decision I will make, again, when I see the need in order to safeguard our airmen and families and support our mission and the community as a whole. What this public health emergency declaration does is, to me as an installation commander, it gives me additional authorities to enforce the command directives that I publish. So it gives me legal authorities over not just the active duty military, but also the civilians that reside on base. I will say at this time I have not declared a public health emergency because I don't see a need for those authorities specifically, but that is something I will definitely consider moving forward as this situation obviously changes on a day-by-day basis.
All right, copy that, sir. So this is going to end our rapid-fire Q&A. We're going to come back, take a look and see if we have any more, but after this we'll start our scenario segments with Doc Ramage, where he'll kind of step us through some specific responses we take to different things. So we'll be right back after this.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
The best way to protect yourself from 2019 novel coronavirus is to avoid being exposed to the virus. Additionally, there are preventative actions that you can take to protect yourself and your family from the spread of respiratory viruses that can make you sick. These include stay home if you're sick, cover your cough, and wash your hands.
There are several measures you can adopt to protect yourself and others from getting the new coronavirus. Frequently clean your hands by using an alcohol-based hand rub product like a gel, or wash your hands with soap and water. When coughing and sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with flexed elbow like this, or use a tissue. If you use a tissue, discard it immediately into a closed bin. Avoid close contact with anyone that has fever and cough. And if you have fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical care early and share information about any recent travels with your healthcare provider. If you just have mild respiratory symptoms and no specific travel history, carefully follow the precautions I just explained and make sure you stay home until recovery. If you need more information on how to protect yourself from the new coronavirus, check the WHO website at who.int.
Attention all 354th Fighter Wing active duty airmen. The base commander has restricted all non-essential movement and directed mission essential reporting with an emphasis on teleworking. Eielson Air Force Base is currently in Health Protection Condition Charlie. View an up-to-date list of facility closures at eielsonforcesupport.com. Upon arrival to Hersey Gate, present your ID with the barcode exposed and ready for scanning. Do not depart until instructed to do so. For more information and to receive the latest updates about novel coronavirus 2019, visit eielson.af.mil/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the 354th Fighter Wing Virtual Town Hall on Coronavirus. This is Kay Nissen. I'm here with Colonel Bishop and Doc Ramage. We're going to start our scenarios segment. This is where we go through specific scenarios we've heard around the wing, gotten posts on, airmen just kind of chatting about what we should do in certain scenarios relating to COVID. So are you guys ready for scenarios?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So here we go. First scenario. I am a sponsor to a new tech schooler who is coming in. Missed the boat on not having to be PCS or stay in place. So they're coming to the airport. I have to go pick that person up. What do I do if I'm supposed to be socially distancing and I have to put them in my car?
Well, that is a great question. So a couple different things you want to think about here is, number one, this is the tech schooler's first exposure to the United States Air Force. And so we want to set a good tone. And so be a good sponsor. Go pick them up. Don't treat them like Typhoid Mary. Now, let's continue to adhere to those social distancing principles. I would make the recommendation that take as large of a car as you can. I wouldn't necessarily go pick them up in a Mini Cooper with them sitting basically on your lap. If you have the ability to have a car with a back seat, have them sit diagonal. As long as they're not coughing, as long as they're not licking things in the car, everything should be fine. If the tech schooler that you're picking up from the airport just so happens to have a cough, kindly ask them to wrap a bandana around their face or cover their cough in their elbow. It would be great to have some hand sanitizer for them to use when they get before they get in your vehicle and then after they get out. But be human. They're our fellow airmen. Take care of them, but keep your distance.
Right. So let's say all I have is a Mini Cooper. What do I do then? Do I need to
find somebody else?
Find somebody else. Yeah, that seems simple enough. Got it. So yeah, welcome to all of our new tech schoolers. I know there's a few of you guys coming in. Hopefully you guys are being welcomed and into quarantine right now, and that's okay, but welcome to Eielson Air Force Base. So next scenario. I'm in quarantine right now, and I start feeling symptomatic, and I don't really know what I should be doing at that point. I have a family. I've been in quarantine with them. What do I do now, Doc?
Great question. So if you're symptomatic and you're in quarantine, everybody is having all the time in the world to look at the internet and get exceedingly freaked out by just the state of the world. But let's remember, 80% of all the COVID infections are very, very mild and barely symptomatic. And so if you're having a cough, if you're having fever, runny nose while you're quarantined, and you feel like you need to get treatment, feel free to come into the med group. Now, not everybody who is having symptoms necessarily needs any treatment at all. For the most part, we're going to get you some Tylenol. We're going to get you something to help cut the mucus and make you feel better. And we'll remind you to wash your hands and hydrate. If you're having increasing shortness of breath or the cough to the point where you're significantly limited, come on into the med group. Not everybody who is coming to the med group is meeting testing criteria, however. And with the test, because there's no current treatment specifically for COVID and there's no vaccines, the testing is really just surveillance to see who has it and tracing contacts. The testing is not going to change what we're doing from a treatment outcome. So not everybody needs to be seen. So here's some guidance that you can have. Just assume you have COVID and act accordingly. Don't go to work if you're sick. If you are sick, wait 7 days from the onset of symptoms and 72 hours fever-free without any medication to reduce the fever, such as Tylenol. And if your cough is improving. Once those 3 conditions have been met, that is actually the CDC recommendation for return to work for people who have diagnosed with COVID. If you follow those, it is well going to keep you from spreading just the normal cough and cold to everybody else in your work center.
Okay, got it. So pay attention to my symptoms, essentially is what I should be doing in quarantine. And if I'm feeling symptomatic, probably give someone a call. Sounds good. All right, next scenario. I have family coming to visit. I've secured my exception to policy for a visitor to come on base because I need help with childcare. Do I need to quarantine said family member?
Absolutely. So they're coming from the outside. Per the commander's directive, they are, after the exception to policy, it is very prudent for them to quarantine and limit your interaction with these family members for that 14 days. The 14 days underscores the incubation period from the exposure to COVID until the point where their symptoms won't have appeared due to COVID. So that 14 days is really key to contain this and keep it off base.
So if you're quarantining with a family member, what does that mean? Like, do I have to have separate areas for them? Should I tell them to stay at a hotel? Should I put them somewhere else? Or how does that work? If their sole purpose was to come to help me out, and then I have to actually separate them from the family for 14 days?
So that is the decision that families need to make. So Colonel Bishop's mandate that we're restricting visitor passes, that keeps unnecessary travel to base. It keeps unnecessary contacts. And so if there's an absolutely unmitigatable situation where you'd have to bring somebody in, really, if they're helping with the children, my recommendation in that is they interact with the children effectively enter into that quarantine period with them. You as the active duty member maintain separation from that family. Now, that's not plastic bubbles, but just keep that distancing, clean those common touch surfaces in the house, and minimize the amount of time that you're interacting with them, especially staying outside that 6-foot cough bubble.
All right, got it. Next scenario, I went to work, found out that my coworker last week over the weekend, was told to stay home because he was feeling symptomatic, but I had worked with him all last week. Should I be quarantining myself, or how does that work?
Well, as long as you're maintaining those social distancing principles, staying outside that 6-foot area of somebody for prolonged periods of time, and washing your surfaces, wipe in, wipe out, and washing your hands, those are key. That if somebody comes down with illness or is marked COVID positive from your work center, that you will not get taken down as a contact and have to go quarantine. Keep your distance, and that keeps the mission going should anybody around you pop positive.
All right. I think this next scenario is actually going to be for you, Colonel Bishop. This is about being mission essential. So I'm an airman who was told that I was mission essential, and I go to my office every single day, but I'm not doing anything. Should I bring that up to my supervisor and ask to stay home? Or how does that work, sir, if you're not agreeing with what mission essential is in your own workspace?
Yeah, absolutely. Have a conversation with your supervisor. Discuss means of your role in accomplishing the mission, and we are more than willing to, through the command chain, have those conversations on be able to balance that risk of mission and risk to airmen and families with the coronavirus. So absolutely have that conversation. That's the best way moving forward. Likewise, if you got an innovative way that you can accomplish your mission and stay home, then we are hungry for those ideas. So I will say this is an opportunity for us as a force to think differently, to think about how we can get the mission done through non-traditional means. It's a great opportunity to innovate, and I will say there's an appetite through the leadership chain from frontline supervisors all the way up to the chief of staff, I will say, to get after those ideas.
Excellent. All right, so that kind of closes our scenario segment. I did see a question pop up. Sir, this is probably going to be for you. Are the F-35s still coming?
F-35s are still on time. I'm happy to report that our first 3 aircraft are flying in Fort Worth and going through the acceptance process. So that delivery timeline is staying on track. So more to follow on what that delivery timeline actually looks like. Our maintenance group and our operations group and our mission support group are actually having those conversations ongoing. But again, that's just kind of underscores the importance. Although we're battling COVID and we are taking these precautionary measures to safeguard our airmen families, we're still getting after the mission, and the F-35 bed down is a good example of that.
Awesome. All right, Doc Ramage, we're actually going to say goodbye to you at the end of this segment, so I just want to offer you some last words.
Absolutely. So thank you so much to the Eielson team out there. You're doing your part to fight and keep the base going with the COVID pandemic. Don't let up. The impact of successful implementation of all these social distancing and hygiene, if it's done effectively, it will not truly be appreciated because we're completely going to avert a disaster. Keep up the fight. Do not let up.
Awesome. Well, thanks, sir, for joining us. After the break, we're going to have Chief Master Sergeant Stephen Hansen, who's going to chat with us about how we keep a professional force when we're teleworking. So I'm looking forward to that, and we're going to take a break right now. See you then.
Anything that makes me feel like I'm kind of going on an adventure, even if I can't leave my house. Listening to true crime podcasts or investigative reporting podcasts or something that just makes me mentally invested makes a huge difference.
I have one tip for surviving work from home, which is currently making dinosaur sounds. Puppies is the tip. Dogs. Okay, guys. Oh, can I have some kisses? Oh, right on the lippers. And if you don't have dogs, I don't know, consider adopting a dog or a cat. You're going to be at home for a while. Now's a really good time to bring a pet into your family if that's the right decision for you. I know a lot of shelters are super full as well right now, and they're having to close down because there's no volunteers. So there's no better time than now to adopt. And if you already have a pet, enjoy all the snuggles and unconditional love.
My tip for social distancing is to have a running video chat with a friend or friends. It doesn't even matter if you're talking all the time or not. It's just helpful to know that someone's there so that if you have a funny tweet or you are listening to a really good song, you can share that with someone immediately, and it just feels good.
What am I doing to maintain normalcy during this pandemic? I am baking, and today I'm making lemon bars. Baking is good because I think that it takes a lot of time during your day and it's a good stress relief, and you end up with something that you can eat, which is the best part.
How I like to blow off some steam is to play a video game.
The first one is to buy my coffee and foods from the local stores who are suffering the most because they are either closing or receiving less customers. We already have coffee at home, but we thought it was a good move to help them as much as we can.
Puzzles. This puzzle is going to change my life. It's awful and it looks like it's going to be a lot of work, but again, anything that makes me feel mentally invested in something, like I have a project, like a puzzle, makes a huge difference.
Hey guys, so one way I'm practicing social distancing and also keeping myself centered in these chaotic times is getting into making my own cocktails at home. I stock up on some bourbon, some simple syrups and fruits, some wine, and make excited to see what I make.
I'm coping with social distancing and processing this strange time in our world by setting a creative challenge for myself. I've decided to draw or write something down in my sketchbook every day as this crisis continues to keep track of how I'm feeling and use a creative outlet to process my anxiety. I have my colored pencils and I'm ready to go.
It's very important, like you've all heard, to maintain some semblance of a daily routine. One way that I'm managing to do that is to set some goals. For me, having a clear mind is also having a fit body. And one way that I'm staying social amongst all this also is by doing this fitness challenge with a bunch of friends. I am trying to run every single day, do something active once a day, and that counts as going outside and going for a run, or even if I'm stepping outside on my roof and doing some jumping jacks. I know vitamin D is very important still, and talking amongst your friends about this is important too. We're gonna do daily check-ins and then weekly progress reports. So hopefully when we emerge from this kind of cocoon, we come out as butterflies.
Welcome back to the show. This is Kay Nissen live for the Coronavirus Town Hall, and now we have with us Chief Master Sergeant Stephen Hansen, the acting 354th Fighter Wing Command Chief. Welcome, Chief.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor to get to talk to the Eielson team here. So I know one of the questions that was kind of put out before the break was how do we maintain a professional force with the current situation and the current trends with social distancing and folks trying to telework and kind of trying to figure things out from home. And I'm here to tell you that this is challenging. You know, I know probably for the bulk of the enlisted force, teleworking isn't necessarily going to cut it. I know for a lot of folks out there and a lot of the jobs, they can't really telework. You know, and for the folks that can, I know there are challenges with connecting and with VPN access and that sort of thing. So I think maintaining a professional force during this time is really going to come down to each of us, more so from a perspective of being a family, you know, and taking care of each other. And I think that example is set with leadership. I think it's set from the top down. I think you see it here with, you know, Colonel Bishop and other leaders kind of reaching out to the community and just letting folks know, hey, we care, we're here, we're going to get through this together. And I think taking that message and taking it down to the supervisors, to the first line supervisors, those are who we really look to at these times. You know, the folks most connected to the airmen that may not be able to telework, but they may still not be at work. Maybe they're doing split shifts. I know there are a lot of folks doing split shifts right now as risk mitigation. It's reaching out to those folks. You know, we have a lot of folks that are in quarantine. We have a lot of maybe a handful of folks still in isolation. It's reaching out to those folks as well, and it's the supervisors. It's also the peers and friends. You know, there are folks out there that are not maybe are dependent and not a service member. There's still a role to be played there, and that's just reaching out to folks.
So, Chief, have you been teleworking?
So, for the past week, I've attempted to telework with some marginal success, I would say. One thing I've noticed is trying to telework from home with small kids in the house and family in the house is extremely challenging. Those worlds kind of blend together. It becomes very interesting. It is awesome from a relationship standpoint, just kind of right now my kids are used to me getting up and going to work kind of before they're out of bed. So in the morning when they wake up and I'm actually home, there's a lot of excitement from them there. So I have had limited success. I've had challenges though with like I said, with the VPN. There are challenges just not having the face-to-face contact as well.
So how have you kind of mitigated that, working from home and not being able to see people face to face?
It's hard. One of the ways we do it is through phone calls and through phone conferencing. At least getting the voice connection. We are looking at ways to do video connection as well. I know a lot of people are using platforms like Zoom, which is a way to get face to face. I think this is it's definitely a dynamic situation. There's a lot of opportunity to try new things. So I would say we're still kind of trying new things there. And I know for me personally, the telephone works. It's still not ideal.
What's been your workout routine now that we can't go to the gym, right? And we have had certainly altered schedules from teleworking and from just trying to keep distance from other people.
Sure. Just because we can't go to the gym doesn't mean that we shouldn't still look at fitness. So I know for me personally, it's taking a break every hour and doing some push-ups or doing some sit-ups. And I have small kids at home. They love to come kind of join in. So we'll take a break. We'll all do some push-ups. We'll do some sit-ups on the living room floor. Typically every hour or so. It's one way we've gotten creative with doing it. So there are a lot of options out there. I know you guys put a fitness video up as well.
Oh yeah, G9 doing his WOD every day.
Yeah.
Great. Well, sir, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this as well. I mean,
yeah.
Military and teleworking. Some people would argue that would never work, but it seems like it's working. I mean, it seems like we've been able to do what needs to get done, but if you have any personal experience in how you're maintaining a routine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in a similar situation as Chief. I got 4 young kids at home, and actually apologies for the technical kind of bandwidth problems we had with this broadcast. I think the root cause is my 3 kids are on Zoom meetings right now, doing classwork from home, and that's just scaling across our community. But it is, like the Chief mentioned, an opportunity. It's an opportunity to think differently, and it's an opportunity not only think differently, but come up with solutions that we can implement quickly. And we are looking for those good ideas to start bubbling up. Well, just personally, I work from home as well. So this morning I woke up. I had a telecon with our leadership team, with the group commanders, and Chief called in on that. We're doing that like every day at 8 o'clock, just to kind of communicate the situation. And then I went from that and right into work at home, and I got to interact with my children, through that opportunity. So it was a nice day out. So my personal workout routine in the winter is cross country skiing. So I went out and got a cross country ski run in, and then came into this event. So I encourage everyone to think through routines, whatever situation you are in, whether you're coming into work or staying at home in order to fulfill your duty there. Again, there's great opportunities for us to think differently and also connect with your family and connect with your friends and connect with the larger community as a whole, because really we are all in this together and we're going to get through it together.
Awesome. Well, with that, sir, we'll switch to last word. So Chief, as our featured guest, do you have anything that you want to give a shout out to the Iceman team for?
Sure. I just want to say thank you to you all. It's amazing just seeing the way folks are coming together and taking care of people and taking care of each other. One of the things I noticed when this situation first broke is, and I know it's still out there, there's uneasiness. Some people are scared, people are a little bit worried, some people are on edge. But the other thing I see is some grace coming out in people. I see kindness. I see people being a little more patient with others. And I see it here in the wing. And I just wanted to say thank you to you all. That's one of the ways we are going to get through this. And I just wanted to say thank you. Keep it up.
Awesome. Sir, your last words?
Yeah, so some thoughts that I have is, the first word that comes to mind is duty. I think this is a unique opportunity to serve our country, our nation, and frankly the entire world by doing our duty. So this duty is really unique in this circumstance. Sometimes for a lot of the people listening, your duty is to stay at home. And
Yep.
you may not be able to telework, but it's still your duty to stay at home. That's the best thing you can do for to serve your country and also your community as a whole. I will say we have lots of people who are still coming to work. For example, we had a huge snowstorm last week, and I swung by the snow barn real quick, maintaining good social distance, but just wanted to give them a thumbs up because they did a great job getting after the mission and allowing us to continue on. So we have lots of people that are coming in, still doing the JOB, and they're doing a great job. But again, they have to do their duty differently as well. We have to socially distance. We have to minimize the threat to our airmen and their families, and to our mission, and to our community as a whole. So continue to do your duty and continue to understand what the direction is, not just from command channels, but also from the CDC and our state government, and follow those. It's extremely important to follow those basics, basic hygiene, basic social distancing, because we do that, and again, everything else falls into place. We're going to be just fine as a community as a whole. So duty is the first word that really comes to mind. Next is opportunity. This is a unique opportunity for everyone, and the chief kind of alluded to that. It's a unique opportunity to serve. It's a unique opportunity to connect with other people that are in very similar circumstances as yourself. You may be alone in your dorm room right now. There's a lot of other airmen alone in their dorm room right now. You may be home with your kids. You may be a spouse like my own that's stuck at home with 4 young kids trying to coordinate all these Zoom meetings. So I encourage everyone to connect with each other. I will say one of the best ways to connect, one of the best ways I like to connect is with humor. And I will say one of the great things about COVID is the memes, right? There's lots of memes out there. There's an opportunity to kind of bring levity into this situation. And I will say this situation is too important and too serious to take ourselves too seriously. So we do need to kind of step back and maintain a little bit of levity because it's important for us to stay engaged, and using humor as a way to kind of lighten the atmosphere, and also gives us some mental capacity to make good decisions that I just find from a leadership perspective. So humor is really important in this situation, in this challenge that we're in. And then the last word that just comes back to gratitude, and Chief mentioned this. Thanks to everyone for taking an active part in combating COVID. We're going to get through this as a team. I want to thank the army of airmen that's really mobilized to take care of those in quarantine and the families that are currently going through that challenge. Just continue to look for opportunities to serve. If you sense some anxiety or some panic, I encourage you to try to replace that with kindness or as an opportunity to serve. That's a great just kind of resiliency technique and a reframing technique. And it's really inspiring to see all that action that's just happening from bottom up. It really makes me proud. Then finally, just a special shout out to our healthcare professionals. They really are on the front line of this. Not just in the Air Force, but really across society right now. So they are continuing, those people are coming in and doing the JOB and supporting us through this environment. So I ask that you kind of keep them in your thoughts and prayers and looking to support that community, because it is really inspiring to see all the great work they're doing. So with that, again, thanks for tuning in. Apologies for the technical difficulties and the bandwidth limitations, but really please continue to submit your questions. Again, we may not have all the answers, but we're going to get you the information that we do have just as soon as we can.
Excellent. All right, Eiseman team, that is the end of our show for today. We're going to make sure that this is posted so everyone can get access to it and that we can help spread the information. So I know one of the things that I saw recently was, let's help spread information, stop the spread of rumors, stop the spread of the virus, and work together. Stay healthy, everyone, and have a great Monday.